Hi class, welcome to EID100, an introductory class on digital security and privacy, which is just what you need as first-year Ryerson University students. As a student, you'll find yourself using the internet all the time. Whether you're submitting assignments through D2L, online shopping, or browsing your social media, you'll want to make sure that all your information is secure. We're all familiar with how to use a computer and the internet. However, has anyone ever learned about safety on the internet? Digital security is an integral part of learning how to use the internet. We need to learn how to protect our personal information, such as our passwords, and know what to do in case we get hacked. In this video, we'll be discussing a few key aspects of digital security that are important to know if you're always on the web. For starters, what is digital security? By definition, digital security is protecting yourself and your personal information on the internet. It means knowing what information to give out and when to protect your identity. In today's video, we'll be discussing what university students need to know in order to protect themselves on the web. Think of it this way. Digital security is just as important as locking your front door when you leave. You wouldn't leave your door unlocked, so why would you approach digital security any differently? We protect our identities in the real world every single day. We would never give out our personal information, such as our address or our real name, to strangers. So why would we do it on the internet? Electronic identity theft is the act of illegally assuming the identity of another human being without their consent, with the intent of committing fraud, theft, exploitative acts, and harm. We give out tons of information on the internet. However, we also need to realize that sometimes the web pages we visit might not be as secure as we think. Encryption is when information is encoded in such a way that only the computer or someone who has the security key can decode it. When you are entering information into a web page, you must first check for the padlock beside the URL. As well, you'll notice an S after the HTTP in your address. This is known as a secure socket layer and lets you know that the web page will protect your private information. Encryption protects our information by using mathematical functions. They are called cryptographic algorithms or ciphers. Sounds complicated, right? Well, that's kind of the point. Encryption is meant to be impossible to crack, unless you have the key. So as long as the key remains in the hands of the right people and everyone else minds their own business, then your information should be just fine. However, this isn't always the case. Although complex encryptions are not decoded by hand, often computers can be tasked with working towards cracking the code, running through endless sets of numbers until something works. This is called a brute force attack. Usually, a good encryption is made to be complex enough to prevent these, but as computers become faster and more powerful, they can run through a greater number of codes more effectively. A dictionary hack is a brute force attack as well. But instead of running through numbers, the program works with words. This is why it is so important to use a variety of passwords. And it's not just how many passwords you have, but it's how complex they are as well. When using websites that involve sensitive information, such as your banking information or social insurance number, the most effective way for people trying to commit identity theft to access our information is through phishing. Instead of creating programs that will run through thousands and thousands of numbers, it would be much easier if we just handed all the information they needed over to them. Phishing is a form of fraud in which the attacker tries to learn information such as login credentials or account information by masquerading as a reputable identity or person in email, IM, or other communication channels. The most common and the easiest scam is deception phishing. Deception phishing usually comes in the form of impersonation and most likely to show up in your inbox of your email. Typically, the email you receive will inform you of something urgent and important that requires your attention, such as a password reset. The email would then either ask you to click a link that takes you to an external fraudulent external source or to disclose the information they require in a responding email. The people trying to pull off these scams know that the effectiveness of them depends on how well they are constructed, which is what makes them so hard to spot usually. It is important to look out for things like generic salutations, grammar mistakes, and spelling errors. As well, without clicking the link to inspect it to see if they redirect to an unknown website. We might think that we have a very strong password and decide to use it for all our accounts on the internet. However, what we fail to recognize that this is exactly how people get hacked. Keeping the same password for all our accounts is the #1 way to quickly lose access to your account and risk it getting hacked. Hackers realize that most people generally use the same or similar passwords when it comes to accounts on the internet. Therefore, if they can get into one account, it won't take much for them to get into another account. You should always be using complex passwords in order to prevent this from happening. However, it's hard to keep track of the many complex and difficult passwords, which is why using a password manager can be helpful. They involve creating an account which involves only remembering one password. The password manager will remember all your other passwords. Using a password manager is much different than autofilling information because autofilling only involves remembering information and it won't protect your account if you have a weak password. A password manager also helps generate complex and difficult passwords that make it more difficult for your account to get hacked. A good password manager includes LastPass, which stores all your information. It is also important to use two-factor authentications, which are an added layer of security. It's a process which requires a password along with extra information that only the user will have knowledge of. Along with having a complex password, using 2FA will make it that much more difficult for your account to get hacked. Websites that use 2FA include Google, MSN, and Yahoo. However, even more websites are now offering it in an attempt to keep hackers out of people's accounts. Using 2FA also decreases the chances of identity theft. Let's talk about cookies. And sadly, we aren't talking about the incredibly yummy snack. These cookies are browser cookies and are small files of data that a website loads onto your browser. Let's say you visit Facebook. Facebook has now loaded a cookie onto your browser, which is sending information back to Facebook so that the website can use this information in order to track your ideal and correlate this with your previous activity. Essentially, cookies are a certain website's way of tracking your online activities and how others who are sharing your computer access information on the web. Cookies do not carry viruses, but they are considered to be an invasion of privacy. Most websites use cookies in order to collect information about you and sell you advertisements, but at the end of the day, you're still being tracked. Based on the websites you visit and the information that you input or links that you click on, an online profile can be constructed to include your personal information, particularly when a website contains trackers belonging to a third party, such as an advertiser or analytics provider. These third-party trackers are often able to piece together your activity on several different websites, and when that happens, the question of privacy arises. If you need a cookie-free search engine, DuckDuckGo is an alternative. It doesn't store cookies, user logs, or IP addresses. Also, if you're curious to see how many third-party sites you access through one website, the extension Lightbeam for Firefox is a very cool interactive graphic that shows your web activity. Let's be honest, when you downloaded the Facebook app or that Candy Crush app, did you look at the terms of service? Most people don't have time to read 10 pages of terms, but maybe you should take a second look. Terms of service are put together by a company who are providing a service online. These terms often dictate what the app or service has access to on your device. In order to use the offered form of digital media, one must accept these terms. Last year, CPC Marketplace made and marketed a horoscope app with the same abilities of many comparable apps. Once the consumer accepted the term of service, giving companies permission to track your location, read all your texts, access your photos, microphone, and camera. Marketplace allowed the consumers to interact with the apps for a week after accepting the TOS. The fact of the matter is only one person skimmed the terms. In many photo sharing sites, as dictated in their terms, once you post a photo, they have the right to reproduce and distribute it. Pretty much every social network has a clause written into their user agreements that allows them to use your pictures for commercial purposes. Specifically, the stipulations you agreed to state that you're granting these companies worldwide, non-exclusive, royalty-free, sub-licensable, and transferable license to use, reproduce, or distribute your private photos. If you don't want strangers listening in on the next conversation you have with your mom, think twice before accepting the terms for your next app that you download. Breach of security or privacy is the loss of unauthorized access to or disclosure of personal information. Some of the most common privacy breaches happen when personal information is stolen, lost, or mistakenly shared. To prevent a security breach, you must understand the threat, which websites have your information, prepare, encrypt laptops, USB keys, and other portable media. Hacking is not only done online, most of the time hackers have physical access to information through lost laptops and USB keys. Also, you should limit personal and information sharing. Maintain up-to-date software and security guards. Keep virus and malware software up to date. Still think you're invincible? That a hack can't happen to you? Well, take the popular social media app Snapchat. In 2014, the usernames and phone numbers for 4.6 million Snapchat accounts were downloaded by hackers who temporarily posted the data online. A website called SnapchatDB released the data but censored the last 2 digits of the phone numbers. It has since been taken offline, but a cached version is still available. It goes to show that it doesn't matter if you're a large company or if you are a student. Everyone is vulnerable to being hacked. In order to prevent hackers or getting hacked, beware of malicious email, dangerous attachments, and be mindful of what goes into your cloud. Not everything should go to the cloud. There's some things that are better kept in one place. Also, check link locations. Ask, where's this link coming from? Public Wi-Fi? Don't share personal data. This includes bank accounts. Also, use two-factor authentication, advanced passwords, or a VPN. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Hopefully everyone enjoyed this short introductory class on digital security and privacy. Online security is such a growing concern, and it involves anyone that is a user of the internet. This is valuable information that will help you navigate through the online world a little bit smarter and will be relevant not only during your years at Ryerson, but for many years to come.